Selected 1. The universe has a precise way of correcting imbalance. Every falsehood eventually collapses under its own weight. And now, the truth that has been circling you like a satellite is ready to land. Right now, someone is confronting the reflection they've avoided for years. The mask they wore to protect deception has cracked, and through that crack, light is pouring in. The person who once doubted you is realizing that their loyalty to falsehood cost them something sacred: peace. They're seeing, with painful clarity, that you were never the villain. You were the truth teller. This exposure isn't punishment, it's revelation. It's what happens when divine timing collides with human denial. The truth doesn't need an announcement. It simply arrives, undeniable and irreversible. Soon, words will surface, messages will be found, and intentions will be revealed. But you don't need to chase any of it. Your task now is to stay still in your light. Because the truth, once set free, does not need a defense. It only needs space to be seen. Elon once said, "Reality tends to resist simulation." That's exactly what's happening here. The illusion is failing. The truth is winning. They're going to learn a mystical truth. However, in reality, divine intelligence planned every stupid move they took against you in order to set you up for this very moment of total vindication. This goes beyond someone at last realizing the truth. When you make too many poor decisions against a selected one, you not only lose the debate, but also your whole concept of reality. This is about the universe delivering justice with surgical precision, like a quicksand-built house of cards. All of the lies they have been believing are going to be exposed. And the most amazing turn of events in spiritual history is going to happen to you. Let's go back to the beginning of this. Because the individual who is now phoning you needs to know precisely how they were used as a weapon in someone else's conflict with you. It began when they made their first disastrous mistake in judgment. They thought that emotional manipulation constituted real suffering, that being loud meant being correct, and that your complacent reactions to turmoil indicated that you didn't care enough to fight. In real time, you saw them fall for it. You saw how every insecurity, trigger, and defensive instinct they had was being listed and used against them, as if they were being examined as part of a scientific experiment. You saw someone spot their psychological weaknesses and create the ideal sob narrative to make them turn against you. Their treachery wasn't what stung the most. You know that others will let you down since you were a chosen one. Watching them discard years of proof about your character in favor of secondhand drama from a psychological manipulation specialist was painful. They decided to trust a stranger's tears over your record, despite the fact that you had shown your heart, constancy, and honesty throughout years of dating. However, you also recognized something that others didn't. They misjudged your spiritual defense. The seeds of your own demise were planted in every falsehood that was said about you. Everyone who was enlisted to oppose you was certain to learn the truth and come back with a greater regard for your moral fiber. Every assault that was made will be retaliated with terrible power. You were going through a spiritual transformation that they were unable to see as they were occupied with making choice after decision that favored turmoil over serenity, falsehoods over truth, and manipulation over sincerity. You weren't broken by each betrayal. It was tearing you apart. You weren't getting weaker with each false accusation. You were being forced to build spiritual muscles you were unaware you had. You didn't plan retaliation or amass weapons to use against them later during those gloomy months. Rather, you delved farther into your spiritual life. You improved your ability to receive heavenly direction. You gained a type of unwavering self-awareness that only comes from enduring fire and refusing to compromise your morals. You were able to connect to source energy in ways you had never experienced before, despite their belief that your solitude would kill you. You found levels of spiritual protection and direction that most people never experience when human help was taken away. Even if everyone around you was telling you that you were mistaken, you learned to follow your gut. Above all, you created what each selected individual need: the capacity to see manipulation techniques in action. The fortitude to stand up for what you believe when everyone else is lost in delusion, and the discernment to turn setbacks into chances for profound spiritual growth. In contrast to their strong tone, while they were busy assaulting your character and protecting your antagonist, the voice on the other end of the phone now sounds wobbly and hesitant. Everything they're about to tell you will sound like the storyline of a psychological thriller, but it will all be confirmed to be true. Type Amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. Take a listen to how they sound today. The virtuous rage has vanished. Horror and bewilderment take the place of the conviction. They are learning that the individual they protected was coordinating their tales with others. They were excluded from some group conversations. They were not invited to some gatherings. There were plans and techniques being discussed that were entirely focused on methodically ruining your reputation rather than defending an innocent victim. They understand that you made an effort to alert them to all of this. You try to save them from becoming victims themselves after seeing the manipulation in action. However, they choose to see your cautions as envy, your wisdom as an assault, and your sincere care as coercion. You recall those discussions in which you attempted to gently draw their attention to discrepancies in the narrative they were being fed. You could hear something cracking in their voice when you told them about your personal experiences that went against the victim narrative and pleaded with them to calm down and think about the potential that they were being manipulated. The sound of a worldview disintegrating in real time, not melancholy. They are advising you to look for proof that all of your statements on this matter were true. You were prophetic in every warning you issued. All of your concerns were legitimate. Every warning sign you identified was a real danger. You weren't insane. You didn't feel envious. You didn't use deception. Throughout the whole incident, you were the only one expressing the truth and seeing clearly. You kept your composure and your judgment while everyone else became enmeshed in the fabricated crises and emotional drama. They found evidence of premeditation that chills them to the bone, screenshots of conversations discussing ways to turn people against you, recordings of people practicing different versions of the same story, and communications that show a level of calculation and malice that's nearly unfathomable to those who act with true compassion. The most terrifying realization, however, is that you weren't only battling one predator. You faced an extensive network of people who were experts in locating the selected and methodically undermining their power in religious groups. To shatter your spirit and neutralize your efficacy, they had researched you, mapped your support network, characterized your connections, and began a concerted psychological assault. When you realize how completely you were deceived by individuals you trusted, the person on the phone expects you to feel upset, heartbroken, and crushed. They're ready for you to demand answers, apologies, or retribution from those involved in the campaign against you. The person you've become as a result of this fire trial is what they're not ready for. Your answer is cool, collected, and even peaceful. Since you've been seeing this whole thing from a higher vantage point from the start, you're not shocked by what they're telling you. You saw the manipulation techniques in action. You were aware that the assaults were well-planned. You realized that only those with prior experience could have committed this degree of systematic lying. The fact that you're not reveling in your vindication is what most surprises them. They aren't being punished for their treachery. You're not threatening to hold people accountable for their involvement in the campaign against you or demanding grandiose demonstrations of regret. Rather, you're reacting with a spiritual maturity that shows how much you've changed as a result of this event. You tell them that their treachery was really a disguised gift. It compelled you to acquire insight that can only be learned by enduring real spiritual conflict and cannot be taught by books or seminars. By emphasizing how ego, emotion, and agenda often impair human judgment, it improved your relationship with divine direction. Type Amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. It taught you to believe in your gut, even when everyone else says you're mistaken. Something you expected is happening while news of what really occurred spreads. Other victims are sharing their own accounts. Those who, believing no one would believe them, stayed silent about similar occurrences months or even years past. You know how predators work, so you knew this would happen. You will never be their first target, and you will most certainly not be their last. Your whole social circle is feeling the ripple effects of your vindication. Individuals are revisiting past discussions, text messages, and social media postings, seeing everything from a fresh perspective. When people were emotionally committed in believing the false story about you, tendencies that were unseen are now becoming apparent. They're recalling details about you that they somehow overlooked while the campaign against you was at its height. Your generosity, moral character, dependability, and readiness to assist others at any cost. They're drawing a comparison between the monster they believed you to be and your true self. Additionally, the cognitive dissonance is causing them to see themselves and you in a way that is drastically and quickly changing. You also foresaw this. You were aware that truth eventually comes to light. Because although truth maintains itself, falsehoods need ongoing energy to maintain. You realize that those who had been momentarily blinded by emotional manipulation and fabricated crises would soon see the manipulative techniques. A thorough inquiry of patterns of deception and spiritual predation has been prompted by what began as one person's realization of the truth. Within conscious communities, people are finding complex networks of people that specialize in locating and eliminating selected individuals who threaten established power systems. You were doing more than just avoiding their strikes. You were researching them. Every strategy they used to manipulate you turned into information you could impart to others. Every psychological weapon they used turned into information that may be used to defend targets in the future. Each falsehood they said turned into proof that exposed their tactics. You transformed their battle against you into a spiritual discernment masterclass. You recorded everything for protection, not retaliation. Yours and others who may be subject to such assaults. You realize that other selected individuals who face comparable circumstances may use your experience as a model. Now the one who first betrayed you is seeing the strategic thinking at work. They're also starting to realize that you weren't only a fortunate victim. From the start, you were a fighter who had a broad perspective. They weren't trying to turn against you with your warnings. Their efforts to save them from becoming victims themselves were sincere. Once the whole truth comes to light and the lies are made public, people aren't getting the expected response from you. The people who hurt you are not the target of your retaliation. You're not trying to disgrace the individuals who took part in the campaign against you or calling for public apologies. Rather, you're showcasing something that sets the selected apart from the rest of humanity. The capacity to turn assaults into chances for significant spiritual growth. You recognize the divine purpose of this whole experience in your growth. It compelled you to cultivate unwavering self-awareness, spiritual discernment that transcends human manipulation, and the type of tried-and-true character that can withstand the degree of power and accountability you're being trained to exercise. Recall your feelings during the lowest points of this experience. In some way, you were aware that you were getting ready for something more significant. The assaults didn't seem random to you. They were intended to shape you into a person who can manage more spiritual power and influence. Everyone who deceived you is now seeing you through entirely different lenses. They now see someone who functions from a degree of spiritual authority they're just now starting to comprehend, as opposed to someone who earlier needed to be restrained or reprimanded. They now see strength and honesty that have withstood the most difficult test, while before they perceived weakness or deception. In ways that would not have been possible by any other methods, you have established yourself as a spiritual authority by gracefully and wisely surviving this orchestrated onslaught. You have shown a level of spiritual maturity that is worthy of respect via your management of false allegations, your reaction to treachery, and your ability to maintain integrity under tremendous circumstances. People who saw your grace in the face of adversity are turning to you for help with their own spiritual issues. Your example of turning setbacks into learning experiences is encouraging others to face their challenges with a similar sense of insight and perspective. Type Amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. Many people now see you as a teacher rather than a peer, including the individual who deceived you. They want your advice on how to become more discriminating, comprehend deception, and safeguard themselves against future predatory conduct. Their most valued advisor is now the one they previously attacked. You knew from the start that this whole thing was setting you up for more power and responsibility, so you're not shocked by this development. The assaults weren't arbitrary. The world created them to help you prepare for the task you're intended to accomplish by testing and fortifying your character. The discovery of the truth has fundamentally changed everyone's life in ways that go much beyond this particular circumstance. The realization that they were so easily duped has completely changed the way your former betrayer approaches relationships, decision-making, and spiritual practice. They are putting new procedures in place for assessing information, new criteria for determining whom to trust, and new methods for preserving spiritual discernment. They have developed a degree of awareness that will shield them from such manipulation efforts for the rest of their lives, as a result of the pain of being used as a weapon against someone they cared about. However, you're seeing the development of a far larger image. As a result, the spiritual community is more devoted to confirming information before acting upon it, more adept at spotting manipulative techniques, and more conscious of predatory behavior patterns. Because of your circumstances, there is now a general immunity to the kind of psychological warfare that was used against you. More than simply personal justice is represented by your full vindication. It is a triumph for spiritual integrity, honesty, and sincerity that will shield many others from such assaults. The individual who made too many poor decisions against you is now live evidence that when you use falsehoods to attack a chosen one, the universe replies with truth so potent that it changes everyone it comes into contact with. Now that the dust has settled, your life's terrain has been irrevocably changed to your advantage. Because they have been put to the test by fire, the connections that are left are stronger. Your group now knows the difference between deceptive emotional theater and genuine spiritual connection. Because everyone who watched this incident has seen what occurs when someone attempts to use deceit to ruin a chosen one, your influence has increased dramatically. The effort by your adversary to cut you off from your network of support has failed spectacularly. Rather than abandoning you and leaving you exposed, their activities have built a network of individuals who are now passionately engaged in your success and fiercely protective of your energy. They have personally seen what happens when people choose falsehoods over the truth, and they're determined to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Since chosen ones are aware that everyone is engaged in conflicts that are invisible to others, you are not celebrating anyone's defeat. You understand that those who attacked you did so from regions of extreme spiritual deprivation and alienation from the divine. You see the actions as screams for assistance from those who have become so lost that they can only feel strong by trying to undermine others. Your triumph is more than simply a personal one. It's playing a far bigger role in the cosmic conflict between deceit and truth. It becomes more difficult for similar assaults on other light workers to succeed each time a selected one successfully reveals a manipulation effort. Your experience is establishing a model that other spiritually awakened people may use in similar circumstances. The ideas from the beginning reappear at the end of this whole narrative, changed by fact. The process of realizing and facing their involvement in spiritual battle has transformed the person who was trembling in their automobile before calling you on the phone into someone entirely different. They now realize that their treachery wasn't only wrong. It was a transgression of cosmic law with far-reaching repercussions. You also anticipated this change. You were aware that the truth would come to light at some point and that everyone would be altered as a result. You knew it wasn't your responsibility to prove your innocence. It was to preserve your moral character while divine justice was carried out in its own perfect time. The group of individuals who were enlisted to take part in the campaign against you are now protected against further efforts at manipulation. They've learned to see the red flags, believe their gut when something seems planned rather than natural, and independently check facts rather than taking dramatic tales at face value. You are stronger, safer, and more determined than ever at the conclusion of the battle that started with your enemies attempting to destroy you. The same individuals who believed they were undermining your power are now live examples of your moral fiber and spiritual authority. The most amazing thing about this whole event is how well you were able to comprehend divine timing throughout the whole process. You were able to see the wider picture while everyone else was consumed by the dramatization of the situation. You recognized that trying to protect yourself would only make things worse. You knew that when the moment was perfect, not when a human ego pushed for it, the truth would come to light. Do you recall how irritated people were by your prepared answers? They wanted you to fight fire with fire, to participate in the drama, to demonstrate your innocence with outbursts of emotion that matched the severity of the charges. But you knew that doing so would only serve to support the false narrative that you were the issue. Your self-control was a sign of mastery, not weakness. You saw that those in lower vibrational conflicts don't function at the same frequency as those who were selected. Everyone else lost their center, but you kept yours. While others were carried away by emotional deception, you maintained your connection to spiritual direction. Your current caller is starting to realize that your composure wasn't a sign of apathy. It was faith in the justice of God. The assaults weren't being ignored by you. You were putting your faith in a higher power to deal with them at the ideal moment. Passivity wasn't what you were doing. You were using strategy in ways that were beyond the comprehension of worldly understanding. You already know the game is rigged, don't you? You can tell the walls are closing in if you're listening. Let's discuss our current course of action. You must be heard, held, and given a fair hand when you spend your life at the whim of the market, when property and profit rule the land. We listen to the people who demand these things. There are paid barriers in the obsidian inner order. Indeed, those who support us and keep our quest going provide us with the ammo we need to battle the archons, resist the machine, go deeper, and find more. Additionally, as a token of appreciation, our premium members get a weekly, 1-hour live, customized group tarot reading, as well as direction, understanding, and clarity for the future. However, we cannot overlook kicking a guy for lying on the ground. Because of this, you may start stealing the Astral Atom unique daily email for free right now. No catch, no paywall. Simply click the link in the description to sign up for the Patreon free tier. This marks the beginning of our discussion with you. It's also bidirectional. Any email we send you may be replied to. We'll read it, listen to you, and do our best to get the cosmos itself to respond. We need your help if you can. Take what's free if you can. The inner order of Obsidian is open. Let's resume our work now. You go through something throughout this whole event that most people never comprehend. The actuality of real-time heavenly protection. Each arrow aimed at you failed to hit its target. Every trap that was placed for you turned into one for your adversaries. Each falsehood about you finally revealed the liar's true nature. This protection was felt by you. Even when you were your lowest, you felt an unseen barrier around your energies that kept the assaults from really getting to your soul. Your core remained impenetrable, even if you may have been wounded by the betrayal, disheartened by the deceit, and irritated by the unfairness. This was no accident or stroke of luck. This was the recognition and defense of your spiritual authority by powers beyond our comprehension. Your adversaries fought against the divine force that permeates you as well as against you. They had cosmic assistance, and they were trying to fight a battle. Furthermore, threats against its selected vessels are not appreciated by the universe, as they explain how every assault that was launched against you has now boomeranged back to its source with deadly intensity. The person on the phone is learning about this protection in real time. They are now seeing why their campaign against you was doomed from the start, and are seeing divine justice in action. Everyone involved is realizing that you have a certain degree of spiritual intelligence that enabled you to see the fraud right away. You were reading energy, seeing patterns, and comprehending the underlying spiritual dynamics at work while others were being sucked into the turmoil on the surface. You were aware that the assaults weren't happening at random. You understood that the emotional manipulation's intensity was intended to subdue reason. You realized that the many assailants' cooperation demonstrated a degree of preparation that much beyond impromptu combat. You were not just able to withstand the onslaught because of your spiritual talents. They assisted you in comprehending the nature of your problems and their causes. You saw how the urge to kill others was motivated by spiritual poverty. You were aware of the fear-based awareness that sees the light of others as a danger that must be eradicated. You realized that you were dealing with individuals who had become so estranged from their divine essence that their only way to feel strong was to try to undermine others. Your ability to react with such elegance and wisdom was made possible by this knowledge. You weren't only protecting yourselves against human assaults. Despite being surrounded by lesser vibratory energy, you were able to retain your frequency. Despite being the object of fear, you were maintaining your connection to love. While you were being attacked by individuals who were acting from darkness, you were embodying light. Your spiritual community is experiencing repercussions from your vindication that go much beyond this particular circumstance. Your story is being used as a case study to show how to remain honest under pressure. They're picking up on your example of turning setbacks into learning experiences. Your reaction to betrayal has evolved into a teaching tool that enables people to distinguish between heavenly and worldly justice. You've shown to them that those who are selected don't have to struggle for approval. All they have to do is hold on to their beliefs while divine order develops in its own perfect time. Based on your experience, the spiritual community is creating new guidelines for dealing with comparable circumstances. They are becoming more adept at spotting the telltale symptoms of coordinated manipulation efforts. Their ability to distinguish between naturally occurring and contrived drama is improving. They are realizing how crucial it is to independently confirm facts rather than taking emotional pleas at its value. People are being taught by your example that counterattacking is not the best way to deal with spiritual warfare. It involves staying on your frequency and putting your faith in divine protection to take care of the specifics. You've shown to them that those who are selected have access to safety and resources that are incomprehensible to humans. You've developed into a spiritual teacher organically via this experience in ways that would not have been achievable in any other manner. Because they have been put to the test in actual fighting scenarios, your insights about discernment, spiritual warfare, and heavenly protection are significant. People are seeking your counsel on how to preserve their spiritual integrity under duress, not only how to deal with deception. They want to know how you maintained your composure in the face of several attacks. They want to know how you were able to believe in heavenly justice when it appeared impossible to find human justice. Your instruction lacks theory. It's useful knowledge gained by enduring real spiritual conflict. You have personal experience with energetic protection, therefore you can talk about its actuality. Because you've seen what occurs when individuals lack spiritual discernment, you can educate about its significance. Since you've become an expert in maintaining frequency under assault, you may advise others on the subject. Now, many people, including the one who deceived you, come to you for spiritual guidance. They understand that you've reached a spiritual maturity level that they're still striving for. They are aware that your answers throughout this experience demonstrated a level of spiritual growth and character that they had not before acknowledged. The fact that your prophetic powers were publicly validated is among the most potent features of your vindication. You were spot on about how this will turn out. While everyone else was blinded by manipulation, you were able to see the truth about the individuals involved. While others were engrossed in superficial drama, you were aware of the spiritual forces at work. You weren't attacking or jealous when you warned against specific people. People didn't want to hear these prophetic observations. You weren't controlling or paranoid about certain circumstances. They were right spiritual judgments that turn out to be true. It wasn't wishful thinking on your part to forecast how things would turn out. They were supernatural downloads that came to pass just as you had predicted. The caller is going through the shock of knowing that you were correct about everything. All of your concerns were legitimate. All of your warnings were spot on. All of your predictions have materialized just as you said. They are facing the truth that they rejected true prophetic insight in favor of dramatization and emotional blackmail. Your spiritual authority will be established in ways that will help not just you, but also everyone in your community who needs help navigating spiritual warfare and deceit, thanks to this validation of your prophetic gifts. People now realize that your ideas originate from a source beyond common human knowledge, so they should pay close attention when you discuss spiritual subjects. You've encountered something throughout this experience that confirms what you've studied about spiritual protection and energy work. In fact, lesser frequency assaults are repelled by your polished energy field. Your frequency doesn't fit deceit, thus the falsehoods that were said about you couldn't hold water. Your energy field is set to truth, thus the manipulation techniques attempted against you couldn't get through. You were aware of how the strikes seemed to bounce off your energies like they were rebounding off an unseen barrier. How helpless and empty the unfounded charges seemed in comparison to your true self. How your deep connection to your true self negated efforts to make you question yourself. You didn't need to work hard to get this protection. It was the inevitable outcome of years of dedication to truth and spiritual growth. Lower vibrational assaults just couldn't penetrate your reality because your energy field had become so perfected and in tune with divine frequency. As they explain how every arrow that was fired at you has now returned to injure the archer, the person on the phone is learning about this protection. They are seeing the application of the law of spiritual cause and consequence. Anything you send out comes back to you, but anything sent to a person who is protected by God comes back to the sender with compound interest. You have gained a deeper grasp of spiritual growth and human psychology from this encounter that will benefit you throughout your life. You now know how to tell the difference between those who adore you and those who adore the concept of you. You now know the difference between those who help you when things are easy and people who stick by you when things are tough. You become adept at identifying manipulation strategies, both mentally and physically. You can tell when someone is acting in a way that is intended to elicit a certain reaction versus when they are being genuine. You can tell the difference between conflict that is naturally occurring and conflict that is being planned by someone with a specific goal. Above all, you've learned to believe in your gut, even when those around you are telling you otherwise. You've found that when it comes to interpreting people and circumstances, your spiritual senses are more accurate than human reasoning. You've gained the self-assurance to speak your truth on your own when called upon, knowing that divine confirmation will arrive at the ideal moment. Clarity about your life's purpose and spiritual goal has been one of the experience's most significant blessings. The danger you represented to deceitful and manipulative systems was directly correlated with the strength of the pushback you encountered. It wasn't a random assault on you. Because your brightness poses a danger to darkness, you were singled out. You now realize that your mission extends beyond your own spiritual growth. Your purpose is to reveal dishonesty, provide discerning skills, and show what true spiritual leadership looks like in action. You were attacked in an effort to prevent you from assuming this position to the fullest extent possible. However, the efforts to stop you have only helped you grow and define your purpose. You've been compelled to acquire the precise abilities and know-how required to guide others through comparable difficulties. You have been put to the test in ways that have validated your moral fiber and established your authority as a spiritual mentor and instructor. Your adversaries were really preparing you for your purpose, even if they believed they were thwarting it. Your character became stronger with each assault. Each betrayal made you wiser. Your reputation for honesty was built on each falsehood that was revealed about you. Unknowingly, those who attempted to stop you are now involved in your training for higher service. Your total vindication is bringing about changes that go much beyond your own social circle. By following your example, other selected individuals who have had such assaults are gaining courage. Better procedures for dealing with deceit and manipulation are being developed by spiritual groups. Individuals are becoming more adept at identifying and thwarting psychological warfare strategies. Others can use your experience as a model when they run into similar circumstances. You have shown that even in situations when human urgency necessitates quick action, integrity can be maintained under tremendous strain, assaults can be turned into learning opportunities, and divine timing can be trusted. Because of what you have been through and how you have responded to it, the spiritual community is stronger. The bar for how selected ones react to spiritual battle has been increased by your example. You've shown that one may be both spiritually developed and tactically astute, kind and perceptive, loving and safe. People outside of your local circle are finding inspiration in your tale as they struggle with deceit and manipulation. You've turned into a representation of what may happen when someone upholds their moral principles at all costs. Now that the dust has settled, your life's terrain has been irrevocably changed to your advantage. Because they have been put to the test by fire, the connections that are left are stronger. Your group now knows the difference between deceptive emotional theater and genuine spiritual connection. Because everyone who watched this incident has seen what occurs when someone attempts to use deceit to ruin a chosen one, your influence has increased dramatically. Now that your spiritual power has been shown under the most trying conditions imaginable, is beyond doubt. People have faith in your judgment since they have seen its accuracy in tests. They admire your knowledge because they have seen how you stood by your convictions when everyone else was enchanted. You've changed since you started this fight. You've come out of this stronger, smarter, more capable, and more determined. As a consequence of your adversaries' efforts to undermine you, you have grown into a spiritual power and influence they never thought was conceivable. The individual who made too many poor decisions against you is now live evidence that when you use falsehoods to attack a chosen one. The universe replies with truth so potent that it changes everyone it comes into contact with.